Welcome. Another episode of Digital Recruiter podcast. Super excited about this episode. As always, I'm your host, Clark Wilcox, and today I'm joined by Luis Derechin, the CEO, founder, owner, all those titles, whatever titles we use nowadays to describe ourselves, of NIR-YU, which is a company that helps companies with their offshore, nearshore talent, employer of record. I mean, you do all the things. So, Luis, thanks for being here today, man.
Clark, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Well, yeah, this is going to be great. And there's you guys do a lot. So I don't know if you want to kind of give the snapshot because you help a ton of recruiting agencies, business even beyond recruiting agencies. But like, give us kind of like the little snapshot of NIR-YU.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity to tell people about NIR-YU.
Yep.
So we do a lot, but at the same time we also focus, right? And although those seem contradictory, it really isn't. And where we focus on nearshore talent mostly. And nearshore talent, for most of your audience probably understands this, but for ages, people have been recruiting from Asia or the Indian subcontinent or Eastern Europe, and Latin America was sort of second or third choice. And what's been happening is because of the same time zone and the need to communicate and the immediacy in communication that exists nowadays, Latin America has taken on a whole new life, and people are now looking to hire in Latin America. So that's where we specialize. It's nearshore staffing. We help all sorts of companies, as you all said, including staffing companies, to find talent based on individual or unique job descriptions in order for us to find the talent. And after finding them, we act as an employee of record in order to have these people in country be able to work remotely while still receiving their money and benefits and whatnot.
I love it. And so I'm going to correct myself because I said offshore in the beginning because I saw the word offshore on the website, but that's all right. It's near shore, so I apologize for that.
No worries.
And it's been great. I mean, even on our end, we've started to talk to people in Mexico, recruiters in Mexico and Costa Rica, and it's been awesome. Like to see the level of talent that is there, and I know it's just been something that I've been newer to this year. I didn't really know it seemed like a huge thing to hurdle, to overcome. You know, I tried it before in different, I hired people in different countries with a mixed results. Greg Fisher, who introduced us, right? Shout out to Greg. Like he really opened my eyes to what this could be. And then even the near short, and you and I have talked, it's been pretty cool. And I have other clients that have now like talked to me, but we've hired engineers and contractors in Brazil and Argentina. I mean, it's really cool, like what the ability and just like the international talent that's out there. How did you get into all this?
That is a great question. So let me go back a bit. I was born in Mexico, but moved to the U.S. at a very early age. So I was six or seven. Moved to San Diego, where I grew up. So again, even though I was born in Mexico, to me, home is San Diego. I did elementary, junior high, high school. I even went to UCSD uh,
Yeah.
in San Diego. But I moved back to Mexico chasing a girl who's now my wife for 32 years. So successful chase. But I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, and in the early 2000s, I founded Mexico's first tech startup to raise U.S. venture capital funding. And I moved to the U.S. This time Washington D.C. in order to run my company and sort of try to uh, get U.S. customers. Fortunately, things went well, and the company ended up being acquired 14 years later. But I'll focus on the part of the story where U.S. So when I first moved back to the U.S. In order to do business in the U.S. I started looking to hire talent, and sticker shock. Oh man, I mean the expense or the wages that have to be paid in the U.S. when compared to what I was used to, which was Latin America, was so huge that what we did is we went back to Mexico, and certainly we hired a few people in the U.S., but we hired a bunch of people in Latin America because we were able to hire three for the price of one, right? And in fact, in those days, it was probably closer to four. So for the price of one person being able to hire three or four people, so we started doing this for ourselves. Um, I didn't know that this was, you know, a big problem, or a business opportunity for others. So for 13, 14 years, we hired talent in Latin America. We also hired some resources. I'm sorry, in India. So we had an office on the West Coast in Silicon Valley, in Washington D.C., and then had in Mexico, and then had some people in Colombia and whatnot. So to answer your question, is we did it out of need, right? Necessity is the mother of invention, so to speak. This time, it's not that we were inventing anything, but we discovered Latin America nearshoring, for us to be able to lower our costs and still get the type of talent that we needed.
I love it. I mean, that feels like that's a lot of successful businesses are born, right? It's like you kind of do it for yourself, and other people are like, hey, I want that thing too, and then you all right, I'll package this up and build a company around that. The So you have a book coming out in a couple weeks, the remote intelligence, right?
Right.
Just remote intelligence with a playbook,
No,
right? Oh yeah.
the book is actually called the Offshore Team Death Trap.
Oh, okay.
It exposes
Yes,
remote intelligence, and let me tell you about that really
please do.
quickly.
Yeah,
So when the software company that I founded back in the day was acquired, I figured, I can rest for a while. I won't do anything, but I started receiving calls from other CEOs in the area that um, knew that we had, that I was no longer at the company, right? Because once the company was acquired, I wasn't required.
yeah,
Uh, and they started calling about their offshore disasters, and they were telling me how a lot of the projects that they had offshore talent or nearshore talent, and the project wasn't going quite the way that they expected. So I would be brought in, and I consulted for these individuals in order to help them sort of right the ship. And I did this once and twice and three times, and I sort of started doing this because I figured there's a business model to be had here, and I started doing it. And oddly enough, um, being of an engineering mind, you sort of start thinking, well, if all these things are going wayward, there has to be some root causes, right? What are the root causes? And if we can fix the root causes, then we can get better results, right? That's the way engineers think.
yeah.
Uh, and it came to the conclusion that there are what what we call seven components of the offshore team death trap, right? And I won't get into too much detail, but I'll just mention them. And if you want, I can go into as much detail as you want.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
there's the talent mirage, cultural chasm, hidden cost spirals, management quicksand, retention revolving door, communication fog, and quality erosion. So those are the seven things that, when analyzed individually, create the offshore team death trap. And then, unfortunately, these things aren't uniquely or individual. These things can sort of stack on each other, right? So because the skills that looked good on paper and crumbled under real talent pressure, right, which is the talent mirage,
Yeah,
sort of combined with communication fog because there's a language barrier or a big time zone. Now
yeah,
you have probably some people that weren't as talented as you thought, and communication isn't going well. So what ends up happening? The project starts failing, right?
yeah,
Make sense?
yeah.
So with these seven components, we then realized if we can find a way to prevent one or multiple of whichever seven death trap components are occurring, then we'll be able to make projects successful. And we came up with a framework, and the framework's called remote intelligence. Remote is an acronym. R stands for rigorous talent selection. E stands for expert onboarding and integration. M is for managed supports and services. O for optimized team performance. T for transparent cost plus pricing. And E for enhanced scalability and growth. So the book is about that. It's about sort of my beginnings and how I discovered the seven ingredients or components of the offshore team death trap, and then we delve into each one of the uh, components in the remote intelligence framework.
I love it. I'm trying to think of like a more original question of the. Or I'm doing a quick math of the six. What was the hardest one to solve? What's typically the hardest one to fix or solve?
Um,
Have you seen?
so I wouldn't say hardest one to solve, but I think it may be and the one that's furthest from people's minds, right?
Okay.
So, um, I you were talking about Greg Fisher, and I actually just read a LinkedIn post of his where he was talking about how people are hiring but want to pay on an hourly basis and don't want to pay for any benefits or don't want to pay don't want to provide any support to the people that they're hiring if they're hiring them offshore, right? So they will treat them like an hourly contractor. You worked on an hourly basis. Here's how much you get paid. And then they'll try to negotiate rock bottom prices. So, because of the mentality, whenever people are hiring offshore, people are typically thinking, I am going to save a bundle of money. And the type of negotiation that they do is rock bottom pricing. And because of that, they won't provide managed support and services. What type of managed support? Anything, right? The type of support that you would give an employee, right? You have an HR team that provides support, provides benefits, provides insurance. If the person is sick, someone to call the person to see how the person is doing, make sure that he or she is being taken care of, etc. So on an offshore or nearshore project, uh, that rarely happens, right? You got like internal HR and then a bunch of people that are working remotely for you, and they're out of sight, out of mind. So dealing with that would seem to not be important, but if the people you have working for you are talented and you want to keep them, then acting in a more supportive and providing the right level of HR services that you would to your internal staff is probably a wise thing to do.
It's almost like you can treat them like fellow human beings in a sense. It is interesting. I mean, I've seen that mindset, and uh, I probably I don't know when it's been painted to me that way. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like not because I was looking to do it any other way. It's just like, hey, what are the best practices? And asking people like yourself and Greg that, and it's like pretty easy. Like it's not crazy. Like right? I mean, it's easy to say yes to. I'm not saying easy to execute, but like even like the total all in cost, having looked at it, like really not that crazy. And to again, you get a bought in employee, loyal, easier to make happen, more goodwill. They're not going to look elsewhere, right? Or you're not going to train them for a year and make it easy for them to get a better job elsewhere, right? It's going to be the same issues you could have here.
Craig, I mean, what you're saying is absolutely right, and we touch on this both, on the book, but I'll mention it now. Is people often say, well, how is it that I fell into this death trap? And the reason is you fell into it because it happens to most smart executives. Only 27% of all offshore projects are successful, right?
Wow.
So if a higher percentage were successful, it means that most people don't fall into this. But if 73% of projects are failing, that means that the vast majority of people fall into the trap. And things like what you said is, so it's easy to understand, right? But when you're sort of in the throes of it, the mindset is a little different. And with mindset, Again, if I was to tell you you hire offshore to save as much money as possible, you're going to into these projects thinking this is about savings, and everything you do is going to be around savings, right? But I think my job is to try to dispel about only being about savings. And yes, you want savings. You can still save 60 to 70%. But if you treat people as you said, in a more humane way, then you can get savings and retention.
Yeah.
Because the counterpoint to that is you get savings and then you don't treat people correctly. The first opportunity that they get to go elsewhere, they're going to go elsewhere. And then the training that you invested into them, all of the knowledge, institutional knowledge that they have of your company, right, of your processes, of everything you do, they're going to go elsewhere where they're going to get treated better. And so the savings that you thought you were going to achieve, yes, you achieved them on an hourly to hourly basis, but ultimately it ended up costing you. And here's some math. Our research points to that every person that leaves a company ends up costing, depending on how much you pay them, anywhere from $12,000 to $42,000, based on lost time, lost traction, institutional knowledge that they take. So once you do the entire math, it makes sense to treat people right with and provide them with managed support and services. But initially, smart executives don't think about it this way because for them it's about savings. And I mean, we can go through the entire acronym and it's basically the same thing. It's a mind shift rather than anything else.
Yeah, it makes sense, and I'm just laughing to myself because I know one of the sectors you help, and a lot is recruiting agencies. And given that I'm a coach and a consultant to a lot of recruiting agencies, own one myself, it's the equivalent of all the recruiters complaining to me. Well, they just keep asking me what my fee is, and they went with the lowest fee, and I'm complaining about it. And why won't they pay 25%? And then a lot of these agencies are turning around trying to figure out how do I get a sourcer in India for as cheap as possible and stuff like that. So it's like that mindset. Like if you complain about not getting premium pricing, but then you treat people with try to be as cheap as possible. There's a correlation there. Like you're not
Absolutely.
getting what you want because you're not giving that itself. Like you're not looking at value and profitability is what people should be looking at, right? If I invest 5K, can I get 50K back? If I invest 1,000, like what am I going to get back? Is it just money that I'm getting back, or is it it's something else as well? And looking at it that way versus just like a cost basis. I don't know what's the difference. Like, how does one get one mindset versus the other in your experience, right? Or
Uh,
yeah,
I'll tell you a funny story. So when I was 18, I was lucky enough to be given the opportunity by my family to go on a Euro trip. Right, this is in the mid '80s, so backpacking through Europe was still a thing. You would basically my parents gave me some money and a Euro rail ticket, good for 6 weeks, and they said go explore the world. And I went with two friends, and one of the friends came from a very sophisticated household where the father drank wine and was a connoisseur of many of life's pleasures. Uh, and we when we got to, I believe it was Venice, so we got to Venice, and I figured I want to drink some wine. I went to a store and I bought a bottle of wine for €2. Okay, €2, and we took it back to a hotel room, and we opened it. I'm not even sure. I said this because I'm corked, but I don't even think it was a cork. I think it was it was
twist
more of a
off. Yeah, yeah.
screw top than cork, because for €2, even in the '80s, I'm not sure you could have gotten that. Long story short, drink the wine. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's putrid. And my friend, right, who initially had said don't buy a €2 bottle of wine, he gave me a lifelong lesson. And he said, if you buy a €2 bottle of wine, you're going to drink a €2 bottle of wine. It doesn't get better because you think it's going to get better.
Yeah.
Reality kicks in and you get what you pay for. So, the mindset, as you well said, most of us think that profitability is about lowering costs. Great. I have news for all of us. If we only focus on lowering costs and not raising quality, and it's only right one of the levers that we try pulling, what we're going to get is that and only that, which doesn't mean you're going to get the best results.
Uh, Amen. That's a great story. It's a lesson. I think when you have this mindset, typically you have to learn in some way, shape, or form. When we were hiring our offshore talent this year, and Greg helped us. We had a few interviews, and he told me and my wife something. He's like, "Don't be afraid to like raise and set the bar at a high standard when interviewing. Like you're going to get the right person that meets it. Because you do 4 or 5, like it's just like, is this what we can get? Should we keep interviewing and all that?" And it was the 7th interview, and we did head and shoulders above everyone else, and she's been an absolute actual rock star for us for 2 months. And that was some of it was just that patience to get there. Yeah.
It gets to another of the letters in the acronym: rigorous talent selection. You have to be super rigorous, right? This isn't about lowering the standards.
Yep.
This is about going in. You can find the same standards as you would if you hire locally. So you have to be super, super rigorous about the standards, and then rigorous about the process, and rigorous about the way you interview, and rigorous about vetting the education and the referrals and whatnot. So rigorous talent selection is the first thing you got to do. I'm glad that you had someone to coach you through this process, which Greg is very good at, and he was able to do this for you. And then because of that, you didn't fall into that trap. But mind you, if you wouldn't have had Greg, in the 5th interview, as you just said, you would have said, well, I'll just settle. And
Yep.
then maybe instead of being in that 95% success, you would have been one of the 73% casualties that end up, I'm not saying it for certain, but maybe you would have fallen into
Yeah.
the death trap if you didn't have that.
I think so. It's why I wasn't going to do it without some sort of support and assistance. And I know that's why it's been with your services, it expands even on that, right? Like there's a lot more goes into it. So like, what have you seen this year? Because I think there's a change in the conversation of how nearshore and offshore is talked about, and that could just be me being newer to the conversation. But I just feel like it's starting to shift to okay, the market is aware that this exists as a solution. They've tried some stuff, and now that there's like okay, there's a good way and a wrong, there's the right way and the wrong way to do this. What have you seen like evolve, say even just this decade, from like the nearshore side of things and how people view it and are treating it?
No, it's a really good question, and I'd say a lot of what has happened is so originally people thought offshore, again, savings in the I'll use my company as an example, not my current company but my software company. When we hired talent, and we hired people offshore in India. We had a really good team in India. The savings back in the day were 85 to 90%. So because of this mindset, right, savings, you were able to hire in India at extreme savings. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. And what's been happening is the wages there have sort of gone up faster than they have in Latin America. So the differences, there used to be almost 100% difference between Latin America and India. Now the differences are much less. So because the cost difference is less, now people are looking a bit more at Latin America as a way to get talent and have people that are nearshore, and nearshore means two things. First of all, because the word near obviously is geographic proximity, but not necessarily. It also means near as far as time zones. Because Argentina is still considered a near shore, right? But geographically, Argentina is further from us. Buenos Aires is further from us than Paris is, believe it or not, right? A lot of people don't realize that. So geographically further, but in similar time zones. So if given the opportunity, all other things being equal, maybe you'd want to hire in Latin America instead of hiring in the Philippines or hiring in India. Having said that, not all things are equal, and you have to understand that there are some skill sets that aren't available in Latin America and are more prevalent. I said aren't available, are less available in Latin America and are more available in India. And because of that, you can't pigeonhole either regions or people or whatnot, right? The formula, the remote intelligence formula, isn't there only for nearshore; it's there for offshore only. But to answer your question, the 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 mind shift is people are now realizing that if they can save money and have people working in the same time zone for a lot of companies or a lot of industries, it makes sense instead of trying to save the maximum amount and having people be 11, 12, 16 time zones away.
Yeah, the time zone one's always a big one. I'm just amazed that people working the graveyard shift, as we called it back in my skill trade recruiting days. Um, it's just yeah, it amazes me. Um, because a lot of listeners to this are agency recruiters, mostly agency recruiters. What are some of the things if I'm an agency recruiter, solo owner, or have like a small firm, and I'm thinking about, a question I get a lot is, I got to bring in some help. Where do I go for help? How do I vet help? Who do I work with? Who do I bring on? What roles do I delegate? What's the roadmap for a recruiting agency that you would recommend that's thinking about, expanding their team?
Well, I think the roadmap for recruiting agency or for any business, I think is basically the same. And then
Okay.
first of all is figure out if it makes sense for you to hire, right? Because then a lot of people think, well, if I'm going to save a ton, then I can go higher, and the answer is no. It depends, right? Do you have enough work? Don't you have enough work? Because you don't want starts and spurts of activity or starts and stops to do this. If you're going to do this, you want to do it wholeheartedly and because there's a real business need to do. Then, what are the part of my operation that I can outsource, or I won't even say outsource, offshore or hire someone else? It's similar to hiring an employee clerk. You know this. I mean, they can be U.S. employee. It doesn't have to be offshore. It's when is it the right time? What am I willing to delegate? How am I going to supervise? Right? What are the skill sets that I need to hire? And then, and I would say the difference from my point of view is a lot of U.S. companies think that they can do this on their own and that it's as easy as putting out a jobs wanted ad or and then bring in people and go to work and that's where I think things go a little awry. There are cultural issues, there are geographical issues, there are some of these things that we're already speaking about where it has to be approached slightly different than if they were going to hire in the US.
So the onboarding is a big piece of it, right? You mentioned not just hiring and vetting, right? The rigorous, standard of bringing on the talent, but that onboarding piece is huge. And I've had
Huge.
three different experiences. Yeah, talk to us. Like, what are people missing there? Best practices. Like, what's the onboarding
Expert
look like?
onboarding, right?
Yeah,
The next letter
yeah.
in the acronym. Uh, so a lot of times, because either the organization that is hiring hasn't thought enough about how am I going to onboard and integrate these individuals, they just do it. They're shooting from the hip on it, and then they're not successful. So some of the best practices are if you're going to make someone part of your team, you have to make sure that they feel like they're part of the team, right? Do they know enough about your company? Do they know enough about you? Do they know enough about what the company goals are, right? Have they been given the mission, the vision? What are our goals? Do we establish clear company goals and individual goals for people, right? Uh, we work with companies that even pay for travel for people who are going to be onboarded to spend the first week in company headquarters in the US, because they have the intent that these people are going to, stay on with the company for enough of a long time where spending a couple $1,000 in travel, hotel, and having these people live the company culture for a day is a great investment. So it depends on what you want, but ultimately, expert onboarding and integration is about just that. It's about making sure that people feel like they're a part of your company, they're integrated into your culture, and then you continuously make sure that they feel like they're part of it.
I love it. I love it. I think there's a lot to go into the how that could even play out. But I think the question I want to ask is like cultural differences has been a big one, from like how you hire in Philippines to India to Mexico to Argentina, like to South Africa. How do you have help teams kind of navigate that piece of it, right? And kind of use as part of your search and interview and onboarding. How do you go even like learning about that, right? Like how do you deal with that, or how do you teach on that? Yeah.
Like anything, uh, you need someone to coach you. You need someone to mentor you on it, right? I'm a big football fan, and when I say football, I don't mean NFL. I
Yeah.
mean soccer, right? That's what we call it in the U.S. But or it applies to football as well. So you have people that are being paid millions of dollars to play, and you still need a coach. So why is it that someone like Shohei Otani, speaking of baseball, right, or Drew Brees or Tom Brady or whoever, whatever great athlete you want, why is it that they still needed a coach, right? You think that they're getting paid the big bucks, they can do this on their own, and the answer is no. You need someone that has a different type of experience to sort of help you do these things in order to be successful. So my answer to your question is much the way that you had Greg, and we work with other companies in order to lead them, coach them, and then provide constant feedback. If someone is thinking about doing this and they want to be successful, they want to be part of the 95% instead of the 27, then they should work with someone that has done it before, that has experience, that is going to help them be successful. Mind you, that doesn't mean they can't be successful, but it just means the probabilities of being successful are much higher. It's much higher, right? When you have a really good coach and really good athletes, the probability of success is much higher than just having a bunch of athletes and a bad coach or no coach,
Yeah.
right? To coordinate with.
Otherwise, there would be more player coaches than there are,
Yeah,
and
you're right.
they're not, right. And you're speaking my language on the coaching piece, and even it's. I tell people like there's a lot of my ideal clients. I would say I'm like you'll get to where you want to get to. I feel like because you work hard and you know what you're doing. I can just help you get there quicker, and there's a lot of
Right.
that, right? Or without like skipping some steps, skipping some tough lessons. Can't avoid all the tough lessons, right? But at least enough that it's going to make it you feel like you're in the right direction sooner. You get to where you want to get to sooner, right? Some of those next destinations, like that's just like how it goes.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah,
Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, I'll mention a really quick example. Let me give you one
please.
more that has to do with our acronym. So T stands for transparent cost plus pricing. I've been called into a bunch of instances where a company thinks that they're saving a ton of money because that they hire a coach, right? A service company that is going to hire the people for them and then is going to be managing the service that is going to be delivered. And then down the road, somewhere down the road, they get shocked because I was paying $2,500 for each resource, and it turns out that the person doing the work was only getting paid 800. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, so you thought you had really good talent, you thought you had really good coaching, and it turns out that the coaching was grabbing most of the value from themselves. They didn't really care about the value of the athletes or the people that you had doing the work, right? And that sort of threw you off as well. So the T in a successful project, and I'm sure you can attest to this. You have to know how much the person that is doing the work is getting paid, and then you have to know how much you're paying the coach and what value you're going to get from the coach and what value you're going to get from the person doing the work. And if it's coach heavy, then you have to think twice about whether that is the right coach that is suggesting that, because to me that's just a person that's transactionally oriented and is going to extract value once and isn't going to be there for the long run. I would rather a coach that extracts some value, a little bit of value, and is there for the long run, shoulder to shoulder with you, learning the lessons or helping you learn the lessons and soften the blows, than not. And that's where transparency and radical transparency, even in the pricing and in everything that happens, has to be there.
So to that, because that was going to be one of my questions, how do people vet vendors, right, in the offshore, nearshore space? So if I talk to you, your team, and all that, you basically are going to break down the pricing and everything that goes into it. Is that what I'm hearing correctly? Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. And
that's like very rare. Yeah,
well, but it's very rare because you don't ask for
yeah,
it. I mean, for me, it's as simple as you say to vendor, look, Mister or Miss Vendor, I want to know how much the people that are working for me are making, because for me it's important that they're paid a fair wage. And mind you, I I'm going to have these conversations with the people that are doing the work.
why not? Yeah. It's the same thing with bill rate. I mean, when I was placing mechanics, I would do markup with some clients. It was very obvious they could calculate it. But if I was on a bill rate, say 47 an hour for a mechanic, I mean, this is wages 10 years ago in LA, paying a mechanic 25 an hour, 27, right? I could pick it. They would ask, like, at the ones that were, especially the ones that were smart on it, they would ask. And so they would know, like, if you were, price gauging them, like, they would figure it out. And if it was fair, I'm like, okay, that's pretty fair, right? And you had to know that conversation could happen. So it's very, very similar. So I learned early on to kind of find that healthy balance. As skilled trades is a premium service, especially in that area. It was hard to find talent. So I could have a premium service if the talent was legit, right? And it was good. It was doing what they needed to do. It sounds like it very much works in the same way. I just haven't heard that much in the offshore nearshore space, which is cool. Yeah.
Again, it's because people won't ask for it. And
Yeah.
so we actually work with several customers, agencies, partners that ask us to recruit for exposition. So I need a developer, and they say to us, and I need a price not to exceed X amount. And it's odd because when we come back, we will come back with let's assume, right, not to exceed $25 an hour. And we'll come back and we'll say, look, we're going to charge you 1937, of which we get paid X and the person's going to get paid Y. And the first time we do that, they'll say, okay, I don't understand. I told you not to exceed 25. Why are you quoting me 1937? And we'll say, because for us it's important that you understand A, how much the person that's going to be doing the work is going to be paid, B, how much we're going to be paid, and if ever there's the person doing the work is doing really good work, then feel free to tell us to compensate the person doing the work more, with additional money. But we shouldn't be billing you more because our work isn't based on the quality of work that the person does. Our work is to support the person doing the work. And the good news is when we do it that way, then ultimately we end up getting more and more and more work, and we sort of grow in the account because companies that are hiring love transparency and love the possibility of having this conversation.
I agree. I love it. I love the approach. I think it's great, and I think people that are listening are gonna probably book a call because that's what they're looking for a lot of times. We all get hit up by everyone at every platform, as text, email, LinkedIn nowadays, and everyone seems to be transactional and want to take our money. That radical transparency, that authenticity, that you know playing like a fair game goes a long way right now. Like more, I think more than it ever has. There's really like a swing back to that, which is great for people that are doing it the right way, right? And then you can rely on your quality of work because you're going to win the long game, which is awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about the long game. Business is about the long game.
That's it. I love it. Well, let me ask you the hot topic, right? The last couple of years is AI, and I actually think this is really interesting in the offshore nearshore space because I've so my thoughts on it, but no one wants to hear my thoughts on this. I want to hear yours. What impact has like the AI and some of those tools on that had on like the remote, the nearshore workforce?
So I take away offshore or nearshore workforce, and it's had a huge impact on
Yeah,
all of us.
just say in general. Yeah.
Yeah, in general. So it's impacted first. It's impacted in that a lot of companies think or thought or are thinking that AI is going to be able to do everything, and certainly it's going to be able to do a lot. I'm not a naysayer, but I'm not sure it's where a lot of people think it is yet. It may get there, and because of that, I've seen I've seen layoffs from a lot of large companies who are laying off customer support roles, sales development roles, thinking that they can now get artificial intelligence to do it. That's sort of like on one end. I've also seen a lot of those companies come back and hire some of the people that have been laid off because it's not quite ready for prime time. I'm not saying it won't get there, but it at least what I've seen is it's not quite there. That's one end. I've also seen other situations where we talk about rigorous talent selection. So candidates are trying to game the system by being interviewed and having a chat bot, or being tested on subjects, and and they're sitting there perplexing the answers in order to provide. Mind you, I said perplexity instead of googling, right? Because
Yeah.
people are now doing that, getting answers to questions, and because of that, the type of vetting that has to go into the talent selection has had to be way more rigorous than before, and the type of interviewing has gotten to be way more rigorous. I mean, it's all over, Clark. It reminds me of the Aldous Huxley book, right? Brave New World. That is where we're going. I don't think it quite applies the context of the book and what we're talking about, but it's a brave new world, and the if you look at the World Economic Forum on their latest report on jobs, which for anyone that wants to read it, I believe it's like almost 300 pages. I'm halfway through it. Um, they're pretty, I'll say, bearish in that they believe, and they give a number. I don't want to lie here, but it's in the tens of millions of jobs that are going to disappear because of artificial intelligence. And you know what? When you read the report, when you read the justification, you're absolutely right, or they're absolutely right, and we're all absolutely right to be scared, cautious, um, but they also say, but hold it. There's also a flip side. And for those people that are willing to, sort of expand their horizons and learn different things, there's also 100, and it's more than twice the same number of jobs that are going to be created, except these are going to be different jobs, right? Instead of you doing the entire thing, now it's going to be AI assisted jobs. So I think that's sort of where we're heading.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know your experience with AI, Clark, but my experience is talking about coaching, it still requires, the prompter isn't a prompter that doesn't know about the topic. It still requires a fair amount of, you sort of start broad, and then you sort of have to start coaching even your AI agents
Yeah.
to be able to solve one thing. And they don't get it the first time around. They're not right the first time around. You sort of have to keep coaching them to keep doing it.
Well, I think what we've found is a nice blend of our internal operations have skyrocketed with what we're able to get done, and then we have talent that whereas English maybe was a barrier, written English, it's now is not a barrier anymore,
Correct.
which is huge, which can actually expedite some of the reporting. I can check a call recap, and I'm not changing the whole document. I'm changing like a sentence or two, and it's because they don't have context because I was on the call and they weren't. Right. But it's like 98% done over and over and over again. So my level of coaching now, because I have all these reports that are crafted by a human with AI assistant that are delivered to me. So when I am coaching at a higher level than I've ever coached before, because I have my client's content report, I have their automation report, I have the last calls, like where we left off and all that's getting done rapidly, same day. Right, we do a content interview for our done for you content clients. I have the next month of questions done the same day after our interview, and they're all questions that are evolved and different than this month, so we're not repetitive on going forward. And like it's just like that. It's like the speed of that. So the quality of our work as a consultancy has just skyrocketed this year once we've actually put these pieces together. So we're able to we're scaling with quality, right? And that's how we're leveraging AI versus people typically scale. Oh, I'm going to have a group coaching program, charge 5 figures, throw a bunch of people in there. They're not really going to have access to anything, but is that really the best solution for people? But now we're able to give a ton of one-on-one support to probably triple the amount of people without sacrificing quality. In fact, quality's gone up, if anything else. And like that's how we've been leveraging it. And now I can have global talent around the world help me execute that.
I mean, you just touched on everything we've been speaking about. Think about this. So, your ability to grow, right, and your ability to grow uses remote intelligence, right? I mean,
Yep.
I will say, right,
Yep.
artificial intelligence,
Yep.
right, in order to provide better intelligence to those customers that you serve.
Yep.
So you're able to create effectiveness, efficiency, right? With the combination of remote intelligence, whether it's in India, in Mexico, in another city,
Yep.
because if you use these formulas correctly, and most people want to use these formulas correctly, right? The framework, then people will be able to experience exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's a raising the bar of the services that you provide by being able to use people that are better trained, better onboarded, that have been vetted rigorously, that you know how much they're going to get paid. Combine those with artificial intelligence, and wham, there you go. All of a sudden, it's better results.
I mean, you touched. I didn't even talk about our SOPs. How quickly we can create SOPs, playbooks, all that, voice to text, or from sales calls or coaching calls, or we record a live training, right? You turn that into a playbook. As soon as the call's uploaded and recorded and all that, and you got to clean it up, take out the emojis, the M dashes, fix the grammar, all that, right? You got to edit it, but it's so much faster,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's been really fun. And I think if you have right, it's never been easier to scale a business doing things the right way. I feel like, I mean, especially like remote. I think that's what's fun. And I think that's what we're seeing, the people that are going after the cash grab, right? But the ones it's like how Google wasn't first on the scene, right? But they ended up dominating the market for 20-25 years. I think that's what's going to happen too after this initial wave. Companies are going to kind of figure out how to get it right, and we're going to see. I don't think the next big company in 10 years will be OpenAI. I think it'll probably be something else.
So,
Based
so
on
if I
that,
could,
that evolves off of it. Yeah.
no, no, I'll jump in right there really quickly. So Peter Diamandis, the founder of X Prize and the author of Abundance, I listen to his podcast often, and they say the same thing that you just said, right? And they say there's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur in scale,
Yeah.
because now you can have one, two, three, five people companies that can actually reach million, billion, maybe even $1 trillion values
Yeah.
because you can now have all this help. But as long as people understand that it's about, and I hope I'm not sounding too commercial with this, but it's about having the right help, remote intelligence, and I don't mean my remote intelligence. I mean any type. But just make sure that what if you're going to hire or employ people remotely, you do it with the right framework in order to be successful, right? So it's remote intelligence, artificial intelligence, and the entrepreneurial intelligence. And if you combine those three,
Game set match.
game, well, yeah,
Yeah, I mean
championship,
for
champion.
championship. Yeah, there it is. That's it. That's a good call. I got two questions for you. First of all, you mentioned that you're a football fan, right? The world football. What was your favorite team?
I'm a supporter of the mighty Tottenham Hotspur.
Okay, okay. Interesting year last year, to say the least.
We well, look, we won European, something big
Oh,
for the first time in many, many, many
yeah.
years. So yeah, interesting. And then coach and yes,
They
it's good.
barely survived relegation, right? But that's what counts, right? As long as you're not 18, 19, or 20, that's what counts. Uh,
Yes,
so it's a better start this year, which is good to see. Um,
yes.
so I had to ask that, and then the last one is any last bits of advice that you want to leave the listeners, based kind of on our conversation, and kind of leave people with.
No, now I have to ask. And you, who are you a supporter of?
I don't. God, I'm such a bandwagon when it comes to club teams. I grew up
Okay,
going to New England Revolution games, and for me,
okay,
I was born in France, moved to Boston when I was 6, and that's right a couple years after is when MLS started. So New England Revolution, but they're terrible. But I'll always root for the hometown. I was always a Cristiano fan over Messi, so like whatever teams he had, it kind of depends on the team year to year that I like. But
okay.
because I root more for the national team than anything else,
Got it,
I would say.
got it.
Yeah, I haven't
Well,
found one overseas that I stuck to. Maybe Liverpool's probably like the closest that I've
oof.
found. But then the Fenway Park, then the Red Sox owners bought them, and I don't really like the Red Sox, so I'm like, I like Steven Gerrard. I like the Never Walk Alone. It's like they got that's. I like the song, so I know I'm terrible. I'm a bandwagon as it gets on club
You're
football,
conflicted. You're
but I
conflicted.
am conflicted. So
So
yeah,
I'll share something with you really quickly. Uh, so in England, that they call a team that almost wins, but then finds unique ways to lose. They call them Spursy, right? And and it's odd because there's also a term in Spanish, or at least in Mexico, where they call it Cruz Azulear. There's a team called Cruz Azul, and it's the equivalent of Tottenham Hotspur, right? It's the almost team. They're about to win, and they find unique ways to lose. So I'm a Spurs fan. I'm a Cruz Azul fan. I'm a San Diego Charger fan. I grew up there, but they too find the weirdest ways to lose. Oakland Athletics. I grew up, loving the Oakland Athletics. So my kids say to me that all their psychological problems are due to the teams that I taught them to support. So
that's funny. I was going to say Buffalo Bills, but Chargers is actually better because they don't really even get to the Super Bowl. I mean, they've been yeah. So it's. I know there was that 2006 right against the Pats. And you guys were like 15-1 or 14-2. The Schottenheimer team. I had no idea how the Patriots won that game. It was like the Chargers like tried to lose that game. It was incredible.
and
Not to
over and over and over.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
to throw salt in the wound.
yeah.
As a spoiled Patriots fan, that's now reaping what we sowed, but that's okay.
Agreed.
But anyways, last bit of tidbit of advice for the listeners: what should they be thinking about as they grow their business, scale their business, or just anything else that you got? Yeah.
Uh, I'll just rehash everything we said. Right, growth has to be intentional. Efficiency and effectiveness has to be intentional. And if it's about being intentional, then do your research, have a framework to be successful. Read my book. It's 99. It'll be 99 cents on Amazon. So it's not like I'm going to be making killing on it. Believe me, I'm not going to make any money. But if you want to be intentional, then do things intentionally.
Check it out.
Hopefully, it'll be of value.
I love it. Well, I know it'll be a value. We'll have the link in the episode summary. It'll be out by the time this releases, so make sure to get that. Make sure to connect with Luis on LinkedIn and check out the website and book a call if you're curious about it, want to learn more. Obviously, he knows what he's doing. He knows his stuff, and you got to be informed. Like it's good to expand your horizons, get that knowledge. And if you've been burned before, you obviously now know where to go. You found the right solution to talk to. So make that happen. Luis, thanks for being here, man. It's just a
Thank
super
you,
fun
bud.
conversation. Yeah.
Likewise, I appreciate your time.
And if
Take
you
care.
got value from this, right, give us some love, 5-star, all that good stuff. And until next time, happy hunting, y'all.